Welcome to Hands-on AI Supervision by UNESCO. This series highlights the practical experiences, technical insights, and strategic priorities identified by experts working on the front lines of AI oversight. This interview series is funded by the European Union and is part of UNESCO's broader work on the ethical governance of AI.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the mini podcast series Hands-on AI Supervision, Lessons from Practice. My name is Lihui. I'm a program specialist at UNESCO and work on the ethics of artificial intelligence. And this series is designed to translate the critical insights again during the interventions poster discussion at the second roundtable on AI supervision that held at UNESCO earlier this year. And our goal is to provide accessible public-facing conversations aimed at supervisors, regulators, policymakers, and practitioners who need to strengthen their technical readiness for AI supervision. And today, we are focusing on the very important topic of AI evaluations, AI evals, the metrics and methodologies. And I am delighted to welcome a leading figure in this field, Agnès Delaborde. Agnès, you are the head of the Artificial Intelligence Evaluation and Cybersecurity Department at the French National Laboratory of Metrology and Testing, LNE. So maybe just by saying this title of you, our listeners will not be able to understand what you're actually doing. So Agnès, to start, maybe you can introduce yourself and your organization in your own words.
Yes, it will be a pleasure. So thank you and hello. Agnès Delaborde, I'm a doctor in computer science, and more precisely it was my PhD was in robotics. But what is more interesting is what I do now at LNE. So I work and I lead a team of AI evaluators. I think that we are going to discover this topic in more detail afterwards. And LNE, it's a public laboratory, French public laboratory under the supervision of the Ministry of Industry. And we've got some special characteristics. We were a laboratory that delivers commercial, that performs commercial activities. Our main objective is to serve industry, so economic stakeholders, but also authorities, to allow them to be able to test the products that are put on the market, and also to perform activities related to certification, as well as metrology, the science of measurement. So overall, this is the LNE approach. We work as an independent, trusted third party. It's really important for us, so we don't develop the product that we are supposed to assess naturally. So it's in this spirit that we tackle the topic of AI evaluation, AI being a product of the industry like any other, I would say.
Excellent. Very excited to explore this topic with you today, Agnès. And as I mentioned, this is a follow-up to the roundtable we held here, and you moderated and guided this discussion. So maybe you can briefly reintroduce your poster topic, and most importantly, why evaluation metrics and methodology matters so profoundly for AI supervision, which is also the working topic that we have here at UNESCO.
Yes, and as we can guess, the topic was mainly technical, because we were talking about tools, metrics, methodologies. So by metrics, what we mean with metrics, not everyone agree on a topic. So I'm just going to say on the whole what it can be. So metrics can be a score of performance, for example. So it can be a figure, but it can also be a way of computing a score, so a formula. So, well, you understand the spirit of it. And concerning the methodologies, naturally, we focus on evaluation methodologies. So concretely, how we are going to assess, to observe the performance or the quality of a system. So in the topic of the roundtable and the working session we had, it was to focus on the limitations, opportunities, and well, as we discovered, it was a mix between technical aspects, but also governance aspects and capacity aspects as well.
So maybe let's explore these topics one by one. And you mentioned in the discussion, like first we address the limitations. So I will want to start with the most difficult part. It's also the difficult part for the practitioners to, practice AI evaluations. My first question actually is AI is now pervasive across many sectors, right? And you have the vertical, horizontal, different types of regulations or supervisions on the place. And how should supervisors think about sectoral specific evaluation needs versus those that are cross-cutting?
And the fact that AI is in a lot of industrial sectors, a lot of different industrial sectors, it raises the first main big limitation challenge, I would say, that we observe in AI evaluation. It's the fact that it seems to be really complicated because, as we know, not all the sectors work the same. They don't have the same regulations. They don't have the same procedures. It's not based on the same type of actors, ecosystem, etc. So at first, the first problem it may raise is the fact that, well, how are we all, supervisors, but as well as industry players, how are we going to tackle this big topic of AI evaluation? And sorry, I was going directly on the limitation. Please refine the question again.
Right. So my question is, how should supervisors think about sector-specific evaluation versus those are cross-cutting? Because one keyword that I captured from the discussion is fragmented. Like people saying, oh, there's a fragmentation in this space.
And this is what I observed as well some years ago when I saw many different sectors. Well, everyone understood and noticed the fact that the AI topic had to be tackled. So everyone was trying to edict, to define, to design principles for AI control on their own field. And so I just observed really concretely this fragmentation. But something changed in the recent years, and naturally it's at the European level, for example, the AI Act. And the AI Act in our context, and I'm sorry because most of the time I'm going to speak in a European context, but well, I'm in France. So we see with the AI Act that all the principles edicted in the AI Act should apply across the sectors. But naturally, there are differences between the sectors. But the type of differences, in fact, at LNE, we work in all the industry domains because our industrial domains, it's AI. In my division, it's AI. But as we know, AI is used everywhere. But so we've got a big overview, and what we observed is that the principles of the AI Act, making sure that your data are of good quality, making sure that your documentation is present, that the training procedures are okay, all the ideas of the AI Act, they do apply to all the sectors because it's still the same type of product. Where we find differences, it will be on things like the acceptable threshold of performance in some domains, as we can guess. Well, the type of mistakes that we must spot and identify, it may be different. In some contexts, a false positive is acceptable. In other contexts, it's completely forbidden. So adaptations are required, and it's mainly driven by the type of risks linked to the sector. But on the whole, the principles are quite well established in the AI community of what should be checked.
Right. I noticed that you use a narrative saying in the past and now. So there definitely some change that happening in this space. But I was wondering, and I'm curious to learn, like when you work with industry or regulators or different sector stakeholders, what is the biggest misconception that you encounter? Like people talk about AI evaluation. Is this the situation that you just described, or is something else?
And I'm going to say, my response may sound a bit provocative because just before this question I said, well, it seems complicated, but it's not much complicated. But I would say that the main misconception we observe is that a lot of people think that AI evaluation is simple. And it's not, in fact. But I'm going to explain it a bit. We know when we learn how to develop AI, we know that at school, when we learn to develop AI, to train a model, we also learn how to test it. It's part of what we know as dev, train, test, etc. Creation of data sets, etc. So computer scientists, inherently, they know that they must test their AI. But what is a misconception here? It's in the context of regulation and market surveillance authority, we're not talking of evaluation as a way of testing the system and the model and optimizing it. It's controlling that it behaves in the right way. So it means that when we do evaluation at LNE, yes, we adopt naturally the same overall idea of checking the performance, but we do it more thoroughly. And the idea of market surveillance authority is the idea of third party, without any conflict of interest. A developer, even if they are fully trustworthy, naturally they will try to obtain score that optimizes yes, the performance and the success of the model. The external evaluator on their side, they are going to spot if ever there is some risk. So the overall mindset is different. Plus, AI evaluation currently, and we know it, for example, from the AI Act, it's really broader than just checking the performance.
Right. Actually, I pick up this saying, and when you talk about computer scientists, they're trained to do this testing. As the same time they learn how to train the model, but then you also pointed out that the purpose is differences for optimization of performance of the models, but also the compliance with the relevant regulatory measures, etc. So there might be a skills mismatch, I'd assume. And what kind of skills or capability do AI supervisors need to have when they want to work effectively with evaluation results?
That's one of the topics that we explore. For example, just to give an example that is close to our current activities, we are in a project funded by the European Commission that is called NOLEFA. And the aim is to develop, to set a pilot of what may be the union testing facilities under the Article 84 of the AI Act. So entities that are here in Europe to support market surveillance authorities. So in the context of this project, we had the opportunity of discussing directly with MSAs, market surveillance authorities, about what skills do they plan to have to do their work of supervision, what they had, what they needed, what type of expertise they needed to hire. So based on their own plan, but also on our technical understanding of what is needed. So it was only to talk briefly about this activity that help us try and understand what is required. What we know, I would say it's my opinion. I know that we need on some part computer scientists. I've heard a lot about the word data scientist, and I think that there may be some kind of misunderstanding about what is the data scientist, and I'm not so sure that we all agree about what it is, and sometimes the two profiles are a bit mixed up. To me, it's different profiles, but we can understand that we need people that are aware and skilled in the understanding of what are algorithms and data. But it's not enough. We also need skills related to the industrial context. In an industry, it would be, for example, a product owner. So they have got those people have got technical expertise, but they also take into account the larger economic context, the type of customers, etc. So an understanding of how this AI model or product system, etc., are going to be used. We also need personals that are sorry, I'm looking for my words in English. People who know law, so lawyers, because they need to understand regulation. And here, I'm sorry because I don't know exactly the right word in English, but I make a difference between someone who deeply understands the spirit of the law and people who understand how law should be applied, so regulation, how it should be applied in industry. I observe that it's something a bit different, the spirit of the law and concretely what it means on the side of the product. So, and I'm pretty sure that I forget some other expertise, but you see that it must be a multidisciplinary approach.
I fully agree. I think multidisciplinary approach is definitely something we are looking for. So you mentioned computer scientists or data scientists. Yes. You mentioned the product owner who can understand the business background.
It's not the right word for an MSA, naturally, right. But you see the idea, yes.
Right. Someone who can understand the industrial...
Sector experts.
Experts. And someone who can translate, let's say, the regulation into the practice and interpret it with a legal background. But then that comes to a question of mine, because we also, have other projects, and it's keep coming up as a question from our member states. They say, who should have the internal expertise? What we should count on the external or third-party provision of the services, provision of this evaluations, etc. So how do you see that? What's the balance between this in-house and external expertise that we are looking for?
I don't know exactly, because so I say it again. I'm still only in the European context, so I know it's different outside of Europe. But in the European scheme, architecture related to market surveillance market surveillance, we know that there is a mix of public authorities doing a range of the work of supervision, but they also rely on an ecosystem of public or private actors that are mandated to perform the evaluation, the conformity checks. And by that, what I mean, sorry, I could have used the right word. We talk of notified bodies, for example, that are authorized by sectorial authorities to perform checking, evaluation, establishing, confirming CE marking, or doing the checks for CE marking. So I think it should be both externalized and internalized as well. The proportion, in fact, what I don't know is the extent to which market surveillance authorities are going to be able to recruit enough people to have huge teams. And I know that there are a lot of discussions as well to know if there can be, research institutions, for example, who may help market surveillance authorities when, for example, you've got a really complex case that needs to be a bit, explored in more detail. So the response is not so, quite clear.
Right. So this emergent topic, I guess, that we will need to continue observing and also, share our perspectives
and learning from the use cases that come from the industry, from the concrete cases. I do think that working on a use case is really better and more efficient. Even if it's a tiny use case, it's really better than taking all the scene into account, all at once. So use cases by use cases, we're going to also to figure out the best way of working. One thing that we should not forget. I'm sorry, you were about to speak.
Definitely. I think we covered this expertise, that's a human side. And then there's another aspect, actually, our participant highlighted in the discussion, that's the data quality. And how do you see that? How to ensure the reliable and high quality of the testing data? How can we ensure we have access to it?
Yes, during the discussion, it came with all the groups, and sometimes at first, data quality. So what the group meant with that, and yes, data is a big thing. I think that in the discussions we took into account a lot of different things related to data, and not all of them are linked to evaluation. First of all, we know about the scarcity of data. The fact that, data has got a certain value, No, I was trying to explain it more, but I'm sure it was okay. On the evaluation side, and we tackled the topic during the discussions, ensuring that, first of all, the training data used by the company was good enough, so representative, but not only, we know that there are a lot of quality data, quality attributes with real technical challenges behind, but also the testing data that we use. If I take one simple example, if we talk of ChatGPT, we know that it was able to, I would say it really like someone naive, but well, to scrap all the internet and everything that is publicly accessible. Yeah. So with what data can we test this system? We cannot reuse data that probably was in the training, plus with ChatGPT, etc., and the LLMs, the large language models. We find a lot of benchmarks, so lists, data prompts, a list of prompts that can be used to evaluate. But these benchmarks, they are public. So naturally, easily, and even naturally, the systems are going to train and adapt to optimize their performance on this. So here, we know that we need confidential data for testing. Plus, concerning the data used for training, we also need to be allowed to be able to ask the industry stakeholders to give us their training data. So confidentiality related to I don't know, patients in medical data, confidentiality linked to the economy, competitive aspects of the industrial. You see all the questions that were raised relative to that. So yes, indeed, really important.
Well, thank you for this. I think this is very insightful, and especially I like your example of ChatGPT. I think that's a challenge you had. But when we say challenge, it doesn't mean that we don't have solution and we don't want to look forward and move forward with this very important agenda and discussion. And actually, I want to move to the second part of our podcast today, and I want to talk about the standardization of AI evaluation. Right? You were saying, this at the European level now we have AI Act, and I have think a lot of movement, a lot of progress is being made. So would you describe the current status of this standardization of AI evaluations, and how does it look like?
At European level, naturally, we all know, because we hear a lot about that, that the Sentinelec, so the European Standardization Committee, was one of the European committees, was mandated by the European Commission to produce the harmonized standard in reference relative to the AI Act. But we also know that at the international level, so instances like ISO, IEEE, etc., a lot of different organizations also establish standards. So I'm just going first to consider this type of standard, so produced by Standardization Committee. So first, at European level, a lot of people say, okay, we are late. The AI Act is already, I don't know the words in English, it's been published, and it's being applicable. Sorry, I don't know the words in English. I'm not a lawyer in English, apparently. They are going to become applicable.
Outdated.
No, not outdated. No. En application. I'm so sorry. Industry stakeholders will have to comply. For example, last year they had to comply to requirements linked to forbidden AI. Next year it's going to address Annex 3. You see, this is what I mentioned. I don't have the word, the good word in English. So here, at European level, we all consider we are not ready. At international level, we observe that there are a lot of different standards, but a standard is, whatever the case, a standard is still useless if it's not used, if it's not adopted in some way by industry and notified bodies endowed with doing the checking of conformity. So I don't know if we are late or if we are not, because outside of standard, we know that there are also a lot of scientific, technical work. Currently, today at LNE, we know that we are not concerned yet by doing the checking of conformity. It may come later. And we know that in some cases, okay, there are standards that are usable, but in the other cases, it doesn't mean that we don't do any checking. It means that we just rely on science, techniques, and also our brains and expertise to be able to do the checking. And I know that we are a bit biased when I say that, but we are glad of what we are able to do just right now, because we're going step by step.
Right. And there are standards. And one thing you mentioned is adaptive, right? Adaptive methodologies. And there will be a process, as you said, step by step. And for AI supervisors, and what kind of adaptive approach you think they will need to do? And also keep in mind, as you said, science is at one thing, technology is one thing. There is the evaluation of AI technologies. How do they need to adapt these standards into the evaluation method work?
I think that the response is quite easy. In fact, just to do research and monitoring and surveillance of the scientific approach. So I think that yes, if we talk of authorities, they will have to do specific checking based on what is on the market at the current moment, but they also need to have another approach of monitoring what is ongoing in the scientific communities. For example, in the recent years, we're talking of emerging capabilities. So emerging capabilities of AI. So AI that may be able to do something that we didn't anticipate at the beginning. So for example, authorities may ensure that at some point either they remain connected to scientific communities or internally that they do some kind of monitoring what is going on technically. And they also need to be able to be ready to perform larger scale R&D, I would say, exploratory analysis, just to remain always upfront, prepared to tackle if anything new happen.
So if I ask you to pick up one priority that supervisors or authority that we need to prepare themselves and to conduct effective AI evaluation, it's research, as you just said.
No. Depending on what you mean by priority, if today they had to focus on something, I would not, and it's only personal, I would not advise research, because the problem, I would say, I don't know how to put it correctly, but the problem would be that research is really broad. When market surveillance is something really, really specific and with a really narrowed scope. So I would say, if market surveillance authorities go only towards research, they are going to say, oh my God, it's so big and so complicated. So I would say just right now, making a focus on what is important really, what is defining themselves, what is the most important. And I would say that the best approach would be risk analysis. In this sector, should we focus on I mentioned as an example, false positive, false negatives, etc. Defining in what context they estimate that something may be really critical and where their missions should be deployed. So focusing on risk analysis. I think that, and in my own experience at LNE, when we started to apply in our AI evaluation, we started to apply preliminary risk analysis. All of a sudden, it rationalizes what we need to focus on. It's like mechanical, approach.
It's like a checklist or a playbook that will guide your next steps.
Exactly, and structured approach. And there are a lot of structured approach for AI risk assessment, management, etc.
Excellent. So I want to wrap up our discussion today. And we want to place AI evaluation in the overall AI supervision work, because this is one part of it. And how do you see, let's say, AI evaluation, why this matters to AI supervision. Let's use maybe some high-level words just to summarize the discussion today.
I think that AI evaluation, naturally, as we understand, it's the core of what needs to be concretely done when we talk about market surveillance. But I think that we know that it cannot be done alone. It's not only a technical aspect. We know, us as evaluators, we know that we face a lot of governance limitation. My list is quite limited here, but you will see the idea. It's the fact that, for example, when I want to evaluate, for the example, I want to evaluate ChatGPT. Currently, it means that I'm going to send my testing prompts to an external organization. I told you before about confidentiality of testing data. My testing data, I don't want to give it because it's going to be used for retraining. So we understand here that in this example that it's a matter of legal aspects. They are not technical at all. We cannot do anything, but we see that it must be linked to other areas of concerns that should be tackled. So evaluation is the big technical thing, but it must be linked to a lot more governance, economics, geopolitics, etc. aspects.
Excellent. So if I can summarize, is this the one, if we pick up one key message and one takeaway message that you want to tell our listeners of the episode, is this the message that you want to convey?
I would like to give one message. It would be, it looks complicated, but in reality it's not so complicated. We need to take everything step by step, and what we observe at LNE, it's we wait, we work on use cases, etc., and everything seems really really clearer. So not so complicated.
All right, I really like your key message. It looks complicated, but not really very complicated. But that's give us a lot of homework to do. I think I have covered everything from the fragmented landscape to the operational constraint, but also give some future directions of this work. I'm really grateful to have you here, Agnès, and look forward to listening more and learning more about your work in the future.
You've been listening to Hands-on AI Supervision, an interview series by UNESCO. This series highlights the practical experiences, technical insights, and strategic priorities identified by experts working on the front lines of AI oversight. To continue the conversation and learn more about UNESCO's work on AI ethics, policy, and in culture, science, and education, follow us at unesco.org. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode.